Hello everyone and welcome to the Raven's Eye. So I challenge you to open up your third eye and let's look at what we see through the camera. Now, there is an overall motif of this episode, and that is grandeur. In our opening scenes, we have a lot of, hey guys, remember King's Landing? Well, this is what it looked like clean. And there was a lot of that going on. But I want to talk this week about the visual language used to communicate the character of Daemon Targaryen. There's been a lot of stuff that's been going on in the trailers, going, hey, this guy's the bad guy, this guy's the bad guy. But then there's also the Memba berries of Memba watching this show, Memba reading these books. There are no good guys, there are no bad guys. Everybody is gray. Everyone is gray. And the dialogue in this show, for the first couple of councils, we get the impression of Daemon Targaryen as this demon, this monster, as portrayed by Otto Hightower. And screw that guy, by the way. And but when we first really see Daemon, we see a very, very, very large visual cue of Daemon being juxtaposed with Jaime Lannister. We have Rhaenyra walking into the throne room, and there's Daemon just kicking it on the throne like, hey, my brother don't even know I'm in town. What's up? And much like what happened when Ned Stark got to King's Landing, and there was Jaime going, so you want this? And there was a fun little scene in Valerian. I think it's a very wise directorial decision to have specifically Daemon and Rhaenyra speaking Valerian to each other. You know, in a very, if you are bilingual or have bilingual friends, you'll notice that yourself or they tend to speak the family's language when speaking to each other. So I thought that was a very, very decent thing. However, our first showing of Daemon Targaryen is him being like, look at me, I am the definition of cocksure with my lack of eyebrows, talking to Rhaenyra. But then we get to see him at work, okay? And this is a very, very important scene for the character. What we have here is the rallying of the Gold Cloaks. I don't know if you guys can see it. We have him rallying the Gold Cloaks and pushing out. Nope, doesn't look like you can see it, so I'll stop sharing that screen. Let's hope we don't get struck by HBO or Discovery. But we have them doing this scene where Daemon rallies the Gold Cloaks together for their first night out on duty. And it is brutal, okay? He essentially gives them the Saruman speech, if you do not know pain, you do not know fear, tonight you taste man flesh. And they go out dispensing the king's justice and showing, and essentially making examples of people in the context of, the crimes they've committed. It's very, very Old Testament style. Thieves are being pointed out, thus arms are being cut off. And visually speaking, I wish I could show it, but for some reason my screen isn't sharing right now. But this really establishes Daemon as the noble on the ground, because a lot of the shots were showing back alleys and residences. Like, this dude knows this city. This is his home. This is his territory. And the interesting thing was the lesser crimes were being met out swiftly, without trial, and all punishment. The scene itself was punctuated with Daemon swinging the blade of execution, specifically Dark Sister, against a murderer. I found this really stuck out to me because the lesser Gold Cloaks, or the ones who weren't in charge, were dispensing out the punishments for robbers and Even the rapist getting gelded on screen was not done by Damon himself. He very much delegated those duties to the other guards. But when it came time to execute a murderer, the biggest crime that there was, he took care of that himself, which visually shows that he's not afraid to do the dirt or to have the dirty work done, but he will take the worst of the dirty work himself, which is really visually brilliant in showing how suited for the Iron Throne he might be. The next,
can I add it?
Yes, please.
Add in something?
Please.
The way you described it, it kind of reminded me of Ned Stark saying, "The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword."
Are you reading my notes? Is that it? Like, seriously. This is exactly that. There is an old saying, a Nietzschean archetype, called the pale criminal, who has the courage of the blade but not of the blood. You know, the person that has no problem committing murder but not facing the reality of what they've done, where Daemon Targaryen is fully cognizant. He is fully cognizant and a true believer in the actions that he's taking, which, as we'll probably talk about in the main segment, can be very, very threatening to someone who's on the wrong side of him. Now, the next couple of scenes that we get with Daemon Targaryen specifically, that show his character, is the fun little japes and snipes that they have in the small council, where you can see he's not really a verbal player in the Game of Thrones. You know, every single time King Heirs complimented what he did or gave him, like, you know, the credit for doing what had to be done, there was old Otto Hightower going, well, he might be good at Kingsguard, but he should be good with his wife. And he's like, well, my wife is ugly, but if you want one, you can have her. Didn't yours just die? You know, and it was very much not subtle, not diplomatic. It was, dude, I'd rather fuck a sheep than fuck my wife, but if you want her, you can have her. You know, there's already sexual tension with my niece and I, so
standard friendly conversation.
Exactly. However, following that scene, we have him with his paramour and him showing impotence, and I think this is a very, very important thematic note, where the truest feelings that he has about insecurity and unsureness, they seem to only show between Daemon and his concubine. This is really, really interesting, because of course, we get almost a full frontal of Matt Smithy Smith being the Smith. So you Doctor Who fetishists out there, you guys, you know, tune in to episode 1. You'll only be mildly disappointed, because we're about, I don't know, 7-8 inches off of full frontal. And but we do get full backle, so that might be something for you guys. But outside of that, his inability to sexually perform, especially in front of the audience of everyone going, hey, look, the prince is in there getting down. And Constance, could you remind me of the name of his concubine? The one in white?
Mysaria.
Mysaria is the one that comes up to him, pretty much saying, you know, you're concerned that you're going to get passed over, but you're not. You're doing all that stuff. By the way, I can call in 2 or 3 more girls for this. And the next scene that we get with those two, showing Daemon's internal monologue and conflicted feelings, is after the birth scene that I'm not showing you guys footage of. Not that I care about our rating, but I've already seen it way too many times. And when he's mourning the loss of his new nephew, it's also juxtaposed in a patented, trademarked, Circle C, certain Circle R, Game of Thrones orgy scene, where everyone around him is doing this, and he broods like Achilles in his tent, thinking about everything that went down, and then having to put on the bravado for everyone that's watching, all of his employees and the people of the realm. So visually speaking, and the way that the scenes were chosen for him really shows the dichotomy of the character and the conflicted nature of what he has to do, what he feels he has to do, and what he's up against. Not going to give it all away, guys. You guys got to watch the episode, because I'm not bringing up the conflict he has with his brother. Y'all will have to tune in for that. But overall, the two main points, or the too long don't read, skip to this part in the time, and the skip to this part in the video, is the visual language of this episode was reestablishing the grandeur of this property, being the, I guess you can say, pseudo pilot for the new show. And within that grandeur, there were a lot of interesting character moments. And the last point I'm going to bring up in this episode, on that theme, is the show starts, the very first shot of the scene is a black screen with words, followed by open, endless sky, as we see Rhaenyra riding Caraxes through the air, and it's like freedom, awesome, cool stuff, great, you know, the, hey, if you guys wanted dragons, here we are, we're opening with dragons, and it showed the grandeur of King's Landing. But as the episode went on, the shots got tighter and tighter and tighter, until we end with the close-up of Rhaenyra's face as she gets named the heir, and the look of burden that she just feels on. So, the movement of shots throughout this episode were very well placed. They were very well placed. Say what you will about the CGI. I don't see it, but I've heard. But the camera movement, the angles that were used, and the storytelling of, we open with a big world that's huge in scope, and we end on a personal story, is something that you might not notice, but your brain does. So what do you guys think about some of these points? Did any of that stuff jump out to you? I think Morgan is like almost like bursting at the seams on this one. Hit me.
So much. So like what we had talked about last week, I think, was that this is a story not about all the houses of Westeros. This is a story about a family, right? Which is not the same as Game of Thrones. And I think that's exactly what this episode showed, and what you're describing is you're seeing the scope, you're seeing it saying, yes, this is all part of this world, and this is what this world is, but now focus. Now come in and see this family and understand the family and understand where they're at and how much they can hurt each other without even meaning to. And that is just such a powerful message and so relatable on so many levels, and I loved every moment of it. And no, I could not identify the kind of shots or what have you, but what you described is exactly what I felt.
Okay. Uzma, what are your thoughts on that, on the visual language of the episode? Did you have similar feelings?
Yeah, but I mostly agree with what you said about Damon. Like, I agree that he didn't show, like, he acted tough in front of everyone. He didn't show any weakness to any of them, except when I didn't notice that part, and it was a really great observation that he did when he was with Miss Arya, and when he was with Rhaenyra. That's the only time it feels like you can see some real emotions on his face, because that's how it reminds me of Ned Stark too, because in front of everyone he showed a tough face. He only showed his real emotions to Cat when they were in the privacy of their chambers. That's the only time he showed his real emotions, and he also acted tough in front of everyone, and that's what Daemon does too. And when you compare him to Viserys seems to be falling apart in front of his council. So in a way, I think he was right that yes,
seems to be falling apart. Maybe falling apart at the seams, but I think it's obvious that he's falling apart. So, but continue.
So when he actually said it on the show, I was like, why is he saying all these cruel things? But when I think about it now, yes, it seems like he had a point. He was kind of right about this.
Awesome.
And
Constance, you're being rather silent about this.
I'm being contemplative. What I got out of the visuals was, it was like, I remember we discussed earlier, like it was a buffet, right? Here's a taste of this, here's a taste of this, here's a taste of this.
Oh, yeah.
This episode gave you a smorgasbord of everything you want out of Game of Thrones. There's the gore. There's the sex. There's the dragons. There's the
So much
intrigue.
gore.
There's the family drama. Yeah, the gore was a little heavy-handed in my opinion, but like we said, we've all seen it. We don't need to go into it. I think that the visuals were very strongly set to give you that this is the world that you remember, but it's different. Here's all the elements of that world that you remember, but these are the key differences between those two worlds. And I like what you're saying about Matt Smith and Damon showing emotion only when he's comfortable. He's a very strong individual, and he has very few chances to be vulnerable around Rhaenyra, around Mysaria. And Matt Smith is a great actor. I think he's done a wonderful job of reflecting that, someone who has two very distinct faces.
Yeah. I just wish either of those faces had eyebrows. I can't get past it. It's,
It's the high forehead and the lack of eyebrows that makes it very difficult.
yeah. But, creative choice. So this has, let us know what you guys think on all of our social media and through emails and stuff like that. But, if you think, especially if you think I'm full of crap, I really want to know what you guys have seen that I haven't. So anyway, this has been The Raven's Eye. And back to you, Sam.